When it comes to building Seo Jiwoo, people will often go for gear sets like these, as she is a hunter of the tank class. However, there's one gear set that is better than the rest, and it turns her into an amazing DPS. So stick around to find out, as this is how to build Seo Jiwoo. So let's start off with all of her best artifact sets. And before I talk about which one of these gear sets are actually the best, I want to cover some other ones that are also really good on her. As if you want to run Seo Jiwoo as a more sort of supportive based tank character instead of a DPS based character, then you can actually run the Noble Sacrifice gear set, which is a really good gear set for her, as the 2 set effect will increase the user's HP by 8%, as well as the 4 set effect, which will decrease the user's attack by 8%, but then will increase your whole team's attack by 8% as well. And the HP increase is very nice because not only is she a HP scaler, but she also does in fact create shields with her first basic skill, Water Dragon Rush, which applies a shield equal to 5% of your HP. And then you could also use the Guardian gear set, as this also does help with shield creation, as the 2 set effect of the set will increase the user's shield effects by 30%, so you're going to be able to create a 30% bigger shield than normal. And then the 4 set effect is basically when a team member, which includes yourself, activates a shield, then you'll be able to increase their damage dealt by 10% as well. So you can either opt for like a 10% damage increase, or you can opt for a 8% attack increase for your whole team. And then finally, the best gear set that I definitely think is the best gear set for Seo Jiwoo is going to be the Toughness gear set. As I'll get onto the specifics later on, but let's talk about the actual gear set in itself, as the 2 set effect will increase your crit rate by 8%, and then the 4 set effect will then increase your crit damage by 32%. So then why exactly is this her best gear set, or why exactly do I think it's her best gear set? And it's because of one thing and one thing only, and that is her weapon, Unparalleled Bravery. As this is obviously her exclusive weapon, and what this will do, it will increase the user's, or being Seo Jiwoo's, crit damage by 5%, which is a decent increase, and then this can go all the way up to 20%, which is an even bigger increase. But what's so incredibly good about this weapon is basically the second part of its passive, which basically says when the user uses Water Dragon Rush, Lightning Kick, Heavy Attack Water Dragon Rush, or Heavy Attack Lightning Kick, which are the 4 different skills that Seo Jiwoo can use, you'll be able to increase your crit damage by 1%, and then you can stack up to 20 times. And then because with her passive, you're able to really quickly and consistently reset the cooldowns of all of these skills, thanks to her passive, of course, then it does make her skills extremely spammable, which means you can get this 20 stacks really quickly and easily, and there is no time limit on this, which is just even better. But obviously, when you get to max dupes, this weapon just becomes ridiculously powerful, as instead of increasing the crit damage bonus from 1%, which is then stackable by 20 times, you'll then still be able to stack it 20 times, but with a 6% increase every time, which then will equal to a 120% crit damage increase, which is just a huge increase in damage. And then of course, pairing that with the Toughness gear set is just going to make her an absolute monster of a DPS that will absolutely, hopefully, shred through the Cerberus boss. Time for accessory sets, and there's only really like 2, maybe 3 that I'd recommend for her, and those are going to be Concentration Firepower, which just increases skill damage. Then you've got Outstanding Connection, which can be really good to give an attack increase to your main DPS if, once again, you want to run her as more of a supporting based character, or the Executioner gear set, where you get a 20% damage increase if the enemy's HP is at 70% or less. And if you wanted to as well, you could run the Berserker gear set, as in Seo Jiwoo's kit, she has a lot of super armor, which means she doesn't really get stunned or interrupted pretty much in anything that she does. So it does mean you can just sit there and just soak up damage to then gain that 30% damage increase if you would like to. So then which one of these 4 are actually going to be the best? Well, I do think it's one of 2, being Executioner and maybe the Berserker gear set, as you do just get a massive damage increase from them, as you can use things like Concentration and Firepower for damage increases. However, the cooldown reduction of basic skills is pretty much useless, as she just resets her skill cooldown anyway, so you don't really need this one as much, but it can be used if you would like to. And then Outstanding Connection, I would only really recommend if you want to use her as a support character, and that's pretty much it. So then let's talk about all of the stats that you're going to want for her, and if you watch my Emma Lauren guide video, then they're going to be very similar to this. And let's start off with the main stats, and for the helmet, additional HP or HP percent will be your best bet. And then of course for your like body armor as well as your gloves, they will always give you defense and also attack, so there's no need to worry about that too much. And then the boots, I would definitely recommend critical hit damage as 100% the best main stat for this gear piece. And you could go defense pendant or HP percent if you would like to, but I just do think crit damage would be way better. And then on to the accessories, and obviously with her necklace, you'll always get additional HP, so that's always good. For the bracelet, it will always be water damage, as she is a water type character, so you're going to want to increase your water damage. For the ring, it will be HP percent or additional additional HP, and then of course additional mana points on the earrings as well. So then for the subsets for all these gear pieces, you're going to want a lot of different things. As of course I'd recommend flat HP, and also HP percent will also be really good to increase your damage and also your shield strength. And then of course things like crit rate, crit damage will also be extremely valuable gear pieces if you are going to run that toughness gear set. And then because she's sort of a skill spammer, things like mana point cost reduction can be extremely useful in order to reduce how much mana points your skills will actually cost, as she does spam them a ton. And then of course other like damage increasing effects like damage increase and defense penetration can always also be useful as well. So let's move on to her best weapons. And of course I've already talked about her main exclusive weapon being Unparalleled Bravery. This will by far be her best weapon, but there's also some other relatively decent weapons that you could use as well, with the main best thing being Ancient Grimoire, as this will increase your power gauge acquisition rate by 12%, and because she spams her skills, you'll be able to get her ultimate really quickly. And then this weapon would definitely be my last choice of weapons, which is the Steel Staff, as basically when you ever use your QTE skill, your power gauge will then be charged by 4.5%, but because she's a character that it just stays on the field for quite a long time, it doesn't really make it a good weapon for her. But again, if you need something to put on her, you can use this one if you want. So then moving on, what are going to be her best skills for you to level up? As of course with any character, she has 7 different skills that you can level up, so which ones are going to be the best ones to level up? So then the first two I definitely recommend leveling up, because they do pretty much just come as a package. It's going to be her 2 basic skills being Water Dragon Rush as well as Lightning Kick, and that is simply just because this is your main source of damage, as this is what you press the most, as you spam them just a ton through her passive, as I mentioned before, which easily makes them the most valuable skills in her kit. Then I'd recommend her ultimate, which is the Transformation Strike, as I mentioned previously, because she's spamming a ton of skills, it means she's generating a lot of ultimate charge, especially with a couple HP based weapons that there are. You'll be able to do it really quickly, and this will then be your second, I guess, highest form of damage, as it just has a huge multiplier in being close to 1500% of her max HP, so you can do a bunch of damage with this skill as well. Then I'd probably recommend Twin Dragon Strike, as of course also when you use your basic skills, you're generating your core meter or core attack meter, whatever you want to call it, so then you can use your core attacks to do a bunch of damage as well. And this is also a skill that you're going to use quite a bit, as it also does then allow you to get one of the training buffs as well, which is really useful. And then I guess it doesn't really matter her basic attacks, her QT skill, and also her support skill are just the most least important parts of her kit, so it doesn't really matter too much in terms of that, I'd say. But I just make sure you definitely focus on her both of her basic skills, her ultimate, and then her core attack, and you'll be set. So then of course, in order to make a character go from really good to insanely good, you've got to also put them in a really good team. So this very first team incorporates a core duo being Min Byung-gu and also Seo Jiwoo. As of course, as I mentioned before, Seo Jiwoo's best build is going to be a crit build, so that means Min Byung-gu will be probably her best support for her, as you can increase crit rate as well as just damage by 12% for 12 seconds, as well as you can also grant crit damage increases as well as damage increases through punishment. And then at that point, you're pretty much free to just use your imagination to then just put whoever else you want in your team, as if you need more break damage, Emma Lauren is great, as well as just any other break character like Nam Chae-young as well can also be useful. And then of course you've got Baekhyun as well, who's also a great break damage dealer and also offers defense decreases as well. And then if you want a character that also does a huge amount of damage but also offers some defense shredding as well, you've also got Choi Jong-in, as Choi does offer defense decreases on some of his skills as well. And pretty much you have a ton of options. You've got things like Lee Bora as well, who's also another great option as well that you can work with. So just honestly, you can just test out whoever you want and you'll honestly have a ton of success. And then the rotations of this team will be basically you'll have Min Byung-gu in your second slot and then Seo Jiwoo in your last slot, so you can get those training stacks from your QTE skill, as pretty much whenever Burst Punch is used, you'll apply 1 training, so you want to be able to apply as many of those as possible so you can start resetting your skill cooldown, so you want to have her either second or last. And then of course Min Byung-gu second, so you can apply the outstanding connection buffs through the accessory set to Seo Jiwoo, and then of course you've got the other character in the first slot. So then this next team is all about taking out and dealing with the Cerberus boss, as the Cerberus boss is one of the hardest bosses in the game, so this team is going to give you a really good chance of dealing with it efficiently. And this will be the rotations that you do. You go Nam Chae-young into Lee Joo-hee and then into Seo Jiwoo. So that's all of her best teams with hunters and stuff. Then I guess what are going to be her best shadows? So with there only being 4 shadows to choose from, it definitely makes Iron the best one, as you can increase your max HP by 6%. So not only will that increase your damage, but it'll increase your shield strength as well. Or you can go for Egress, who will also be perfectly fine, as if you're suffering from a little bit of and you need a little bit of crit rate, Egress will also be a perfect fit and could be your best fit as well. So let's say you went with Egress, then I do actually think Iron is actually also another great shadow to have, as he does offer defense decreases. And then because Seo Jiwoo is a bit of a single target specialist and doesn't offer a huge amount of AoE damage, then I do think Blades is going to be the next best thing, as he offers a huge amount of damage with Frost Gazer. So there you have it. That is a complete build guide for Seo Jiwoo. She's a really good character. Definitely probably 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th best hunter in the game. Definitely in the top 5 for sure. She's insanely good. And what would also be insanely good is you supporting me as a creator, and I would greatly appreciate it. So if you want to support me as a creator for Solo Leveling Arise, then I'll leave a link down below for you to do that if you would like to. But most importantly, of course, if you did enjoy the video, you found it useful just in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe as it helps a ton, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!